Got my poppy. I was worried about that. This is important to me. I'm a U.S. citizen, but my father was a foot soldier in World War II, fought through France, Belgium, and Germany to the end of the war. And I always remember him telling me one time, there was only one time he ever talked about it. Came home 2 o'clock in the morning, my dad was sitting there and crying, watching some real footage from World War II when they started bringing that out. And I said, Dad, what's wrong? He said, I was there, you know, and that was the only night he ever told me what happened. And never thought he'd get through it. And obviously I'm here, so he did. So thankfully that happened. Anyway, supportive of Canadian, your celebration with the poppy here. All right, so let's see here. Where do I want to start? I got good news, I got bad news, and I got hope. And we'll go through what I mean by all that. We'll do a 20-minute, I'll be doing 20-minute presentation here. I'll try to spin through this. There's a lot to cover. So much is going on in our world. I think people are getting overwhelmed. It's so hard to keep up with it all. It's all very troubling, but I have some simple solutions. You don't have to get too complicated with this. I think there's some basic things to do, and you're going to be just fine. So 2023, the year of some shocking changes. First of all, I think hyperinflation is going to hit the United States. And I'll get into a little bit more why on each one of these. I just want to cover these basic things, some of the things I think are going to happen. The great monetary reset is here. You know, this used to be conspiracy theory. I was one of the first to really bring this to the public's awareness. Talking about the Great Reset, people thought it was conspiracy theory. They thought I was kind of out there, a nutcase, right? Now it's in the mainstream. This is real. It's not conspiracy theory. There is an agenda going on that is not in the best interest of the people. You need to be aware. We need to try to fight against this anytime we can. I believe the Fed will destroy the US dollar to usher in a cashless system. This is what they want, a digital currency. Watch for the pivot. I'll talk more about that. I don't see any way that they can keep raising interest rates. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but the Fed is in a bad position. They have lost credibility. You know, they talk out both sides of their mouth. They lie constantly, but they have a big following because a lot of people have made money following the Fed. But that doesn't mean they're a good organization. As I've always said, the Fed is no more federal than Federal Express. It's owned by fractional stockholders, most of which are foreigners who charge the US interest on money they create for our use. How the hell did that happen? We should be fighting against that. They've stolen from the people. They've made it more difficult for the average person to live and do well. The wars and rumors of war narrative I keep mentioning, we don't know when that could happen, but we see reasoning why this is getting more and more troublesome, right? You see Putin remarks with Ukraine about exchanging tactical nukes, craziness, right? The tensions between China and the US regarding Taiwan, that looks like that's gonna hit at some point. We don't know if it's this year or next year, 10 years from now, but obviously that's a problem. Precious metals, the good news, precious metals are finally gonna turn here. And not only turn and rally, but they will soar. And I'll explain a little bit more about why that's going to happen. Worldwide, investors are going to start to seek safe haven en masse. It hasn't happened yet. It's still a small percentage of people that understand precious metals. I have a little education slide that I'm going to teach you today why this is so important about owning gold, physical metals, and the quality mining shares. So, you know, it's a troubled situation on so many fronts, but we can boil this all down to some pretty simple things, and we don't have to get too complicated. So in the mining shares, you know, our market appears to have bottomed or soon will bottom. It's hard to tell. There's probably a little more tax loss selling that's going to happen between now and the end of the year, but I'm concerned about these US elections, and I've told my subscribers to start picking away at the good values now. Now's the time to do it. Take your positions you want and don't worry about it because the market will rebound, I think, no later than first quarter of next year. Smart investors are quietly buying the best values at a discount. There's many of these companies here on this panel and on our floor. I talked to Almadex this morning. Hell, 17 million in cash, they're trading at cash value. Great exploration story led by a great team that I've had success with before. 30 cents, it's a no-brainer for me. You know, it's great value. Your downside is limited, your upside is huge when the market rallies, and many others I could mention. Within the exploration world, I see a lot of advanced stage projects that seem poised for a breakout moment when that rally comes. They will rebound the quickest, they'll bounce back the fastest. The combination of these last three items spell major opportunity for me and big speculative gains for all of us. The growing mismatch between supply and demand for resources, all resources, is unavoidable, and reckoning's in the making because of that. So regardless of the current market malaise that's been difficult, it's been a bummer, no doubt about it, but opportunity abounds. Crisis brings great opportunity to make big money. As we approach 2023, I also see the merger and acquisition activity in the mining space is gonna become more pronounced, of course, when the bull market resumes. And again, I think that happens in 2023 for sure. So why will hyperinflation hit, particularly in the U.S., okay? The Fed is trying to talk inflation down. They're trying to, they have to make it look like they're doing something to fight inflation, when in reality, there's nothing they can do, because to truly fight inflation, you'd have to raise the interest rate higher than the real rate of inflation. That means game over for the U.S. government on their interest that they owe on their debt. For every 1 point the Fed raises the interest, it's $360 million additional interest that has to be paid on that debt every year. To stop inflation, the real rate of inflation is at least 14%, not the 8.5% they say. Hell, in America, I just bought something that does doubled in price in the last year, okay? So 8.5% is a, you know, it's a low number, let's just put it that way. So there's no way they can keep raising interest rates. Why? Because they'll bankrupt the federal government, it'll default. The interest owed would be more than their whole budget, annual budget. And now it's taking such a big part of that budget, each point they increase the interest, right? So that's a default in the making. They're not gonna do that. The Fed will come up with some excuse here. You watch, weeks ahead, next few months, I can't tell you exactly when, they'll come up with an excuse why they have to start lowering interest rates. And guess what'll happen? Massive amount of new money will be created. I mean, what have they created just since COVID? 6 or 7 trillion in the US? And you wonder why inflation is happening? Give me a break. And then I had to laugh. You know, last night I'm watching the World Series. I'm from Philly. I grew up outside Philly. So I'm still a Phillies fan, even though I don't watch it much anymore. But some of the commercials, the political commercials, localized, and the local politicians saying, oh, I'm going to fight inflation. I'm like, ludicrous. That's ludicrous. There's not a damn thing that politician can do to fight inflation. Fighting inflation has to do with the Fed. The Fed and the U.S. government created it. It's not some greedy business owners or all the crap they tell you on television, right? It's the Fed, right? Why do we trust this organization? It blows my mind, but anyway. So the Fed will pivot. A lot of people don't believe that. They think they'll keep raising interest rates. I believe just the opposite. They have to lower interest rates, and that's what's going to be the fuel to put on the fire, that's going to be sprayed on the fire, and hyperinflation is going to hit. Now, hyperinflation is a nasty experience. Many of you in this room are as old as me or older. I'm 65 this year, so I grew up suburban Philadelphia in the 70s. And I witnessed the inflation. And what happened was all these dads that always had good jobs, all of a sudden they were losing their jobs. They were getting laid off. And it really caused a lot of problems. I remember families having to live with other families and, you know, helping people out with food. And for about a year and a half there, it was scary. Eventually it changed and things got better, but boy, those layoffs were scary. And what makes that even more problematic is that 60% of Americans, and not quite as many Canadians, 50-some percent, 55, 56, somewhere in there, are living paycheck to paycheck, no savings, on average $110,000 of installment and credit card debt. When they get laid off, game over for what? They can't pay the mortgage, they can't pay the car, they can't pay anything. So right now in the United States, we're not even at the trouble point yet, and there's 15,000 cars being repossessed every day in the United States. So 60% of your population will be defaulting on their mortgages, on their car loans, on their credit cards, on their installment loans. That's terrible for the banks, okay? That's the bad news, okay? I'm sorry, I hate talking about that, but it's the truth. And I've always believed you can't bury your head in the sand. You got to face the truth and understand what's going on so you can protect yourself and do what you can. Some of this is out of our control, but we can control certain things. All right, so the Fed's going to pivot, and the amount of money already created and the crazy amounts that will soon be added will tip the scales and cause these problems. All right, why a monetary reset is underway. Look, 80% of the world doesn't want the dollar anymore. Do you blame them? Okay, it's already underway. China's already doing the digital currency. Russia wants to move away and get a Moscow gold exchange so they don't have to deal with the corrupt COMEX anymore. All the BRICS, they all want a different alternative. And what's really scary is the Saudis, who have always been supportive, are now looking to do this as well. So obviously, to me, this is underway. They want to move to digital currencies. Now, what we don't know is, will each country have their own digital currency first, switching this out of dollars into a digital dollar, China out of the yuan into their digital product, whatever? Or does the powers that shouldn't be in this world, can they push it ahead far enough where they can just do one world digital currency right now? I don't think that could happen. It's too much too soon. We'll probably have these other digital currencies to deal with, and we'll go from there. So here's the thing. They keep saying the dollar's strong. Are you kidding me? I have to explain why this is so important. If the dollar's so strong, why is its purchasing power so weak? Why does it keep buying less and less almost on a daily basis? Something's wrong. What's wrong? It's a ruse. It's an illusion that they've created with all the funny money. They can prop up the bubble markets. But this is the trend they don't want you to see, that money is devaluing. And you have to work harder and harder to keep ahead, to stay ahead. So this is why we come to a mining stock, because this is one of the few places left that you have that you can take small amounts of money and make large amounts of money very quickly. When these markets turn, the vicissitudes in this market are like this, right? They can go up in a matter of days 100, 200%. They can go down 80% in a couple days. That's how this market works. But what I'm telling you is I was just at the Beaver Creek Precious Metal Summit, Beaver Creek, Colorado, and that's where all the fund managers come. This is the wealth of the world. And they are en masse at a gold conference, gold silver conference. And I asked them, are you guys buying yet? Why not? They're not buying. Well, because they're hooked in with the Fed, and the Fed must be telling them gold's going to go lower. And I said, okay. And so gold has gone lower. Since that conference, gold is down $80 an ounce. So they were right. These guys are hooked into the Fed. The Fed knows these are the largest pools of capital in the world. And they stay tight with these guys. But they know they're there en masse because they know they're going to have to come to gold eventually. And when they do, wow, watch out what happens to our mining stocks. This will be the biggest run we've ever seen. So the trend they don't want you to see is that they say the dollar's strong, but it keeps buying less and less. Something's obviously wrong. So the Fed is hiding this fact. They keep the bubble markets propped up with funny money. And, but people are waking up to this ruse. They're starting to figure it out. And the strong dollar against other currencies, these other countries want out. They want out now. And there's nothing that the U.S. government can do to stop it. I already mentioned that. The depegging of the dollar, the second point, is the end game for the financial system as we know it, okay? They're going to have to switch to something else. I think the powers that shouldn't be in this world want to use the chaos and confusion from such an event to push their digital currency, their digital product. How that all pans out, we don't know. It's too hard to tell at this point, but that's where they want to go. That's their pipe dream, to have a digital one world currency that they control with a credit score that you have. In other words, if you're critical of them or you're not a person that they like, they can just screw with you in any way they want. One of the things that's really got my attention lately, 600 to 700 trillion in notional derivative contracts that's been hanging out that the Fed and the US government said you don't have to put these contracts on your books after the 2008 financial crisis. 2008, the financial crisis was the death of the financial system as we knew it. It's been on life support ever since. And now the end game is coming into view, and it causes all these problems. But this 600 to 700 trillion, that's 1,000 billion. 600 to 700 trillion, that's almost a quadrillion. 1,000 trillion. It's ridiculous numbers, right? So what's happening is that these are tied to LIBOR. It's the way they set interest rates for these kind of derivative products, but they're now shifting to SOFR. SOFR does not work like the LIBOR. This is finally where the derivative insanity comes to its consequence. I don't even want to go any more about that. It's just crazy. So usually when we see these kind of problems, we see war, right? They always seem to want to go to the war card. Some history you should know. This is a history lesson why this thing with the dollar, the devaluation of the dollar over time is so important. Originally in the US, gold was pegged 1/20th of an ounce of gold to $1 US, a 1-to-1 ratio, on a 1-to-1 ratio, okay? When the Fed came into existence in 1913, it was switched from a 1-to-1 to a 2.4-to-1, okay? In 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, that peg was again shifted to a 4-to-1 ratio while also taking away a citizen's right to convert dollars into gold at the bank. It used to be, on the old movies you see in the US at the banker teller window, you see the little scale there. That scale was there. A citizen could walk in with a $10 bill, get $10 worth of gold at the current rate of exchange, which back then, was what it was. In 1945, the Bretton Woods Agreement after World War II, they made the dollar the benchmark currency of the world, but the countries only went along with it as long as it was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. That stayed in existence until August 15th of 1971, a day that will live in infamy when all of this comes to its sad conclusion. People are going to look back on that. How did we allow this to happen? How did we lose our minds, right? Richard Nixon decoupled the dollar from gold on the world stage, which prevented countries now, not individuals anymore, countries from converting dollars into gold. In other words, the Vietnam War was going on and they were taking all this money to spend for the Vietnam War. It was causing inflation. And so countries said, we want our gold. We don't want to hold these dollars. They're devaluing, okay? And they were right. The reason this is so important, having a gold standard keeps the power in the hands of the public, right? In other words, if you don't like what the government is doing, you just walk into a bank, convert your dollars into gold. It keeps them in check. It keeps them accountable to the people. When they have a fiat currency like we do now, once Nixon decoupled everything, it was a total fiat currency. It's just a big bunch of political mumbo jumbo, pieces of paper with ink on them, political promises that can't possibly be kept eventually. And so this is where we are. And this is why you need to own gold. If you understand what's happening right now, your ticket to safety financially, your safety boat, your security is in owning the physical metal and the quality mining shares. Best way to roll as investors for me, be liquid right now. The best form of cash is holding physical gold and silver. I only keep on my bank account now what I need to pay my monthly bills. Everything else has been converted into physical gold and silver. If I need more money, I just, I'm a bullion dealer, so it's a little easier for me, but within 5 days, I can get the cash out of my bullion, It's simple. It's not that difficult. And you need to understand that because there's trouble with the banks. So own the, update on gold and silver availability. Yes, the situation is not as dire as some people have been saying. I can get physical gold and silver for my clients. There's just some delays. It's still available. There's no shortages that I see. But the paper price on the COMEX is irrelevant because to buy silver eagles or silver buffaloes or gold eagles, it's way above the spot price. $36 for a gold or for a silver eagle. For a gold eagle, the premium I pay is $200 over spot, right? So something's wrong here, right? Why are they limiting production? You'd think they'd be increasing production because they're making so much money. To me, that's a major tell. Limiting production, raising the premiums. They don't want the populace to own this stuff, right? So you have a limited time, I think. I might be out of business as a gold dealer, a silver dealer, because there won't be anything to sell. And when all these massive pools of capital run to precious metals, they're going to want to own some physical. It's not going to be available. So you're still in a window of time where you can get some of this stuff. Go to kitco.com. Canadians, I tell my Canadian subscribers, go to Kitco, go to Vancouver Bullion Exchange here in town. So get out of the bubble markets. The downside has only begun. Take a preparedness mindset, especially regarding food. Isn't it crazy in the United States that we're hearing that we don't have any diesel fuel? Well, if you don't have diesel fuel, the trucks stop going to Costco and the grocery stores, and things come to a screeching halt. How can we have no diesel fuel? This is insane, right? Well, diesel is heavy oil, not light oil. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve only has light oil. Why is that, by the way? I want to get into that. But there should be no reason that we have these problems, because we have enough oil and gas in the United States. We've shut it all down. Why? Because of some bogus lie about climate change? Sure, the earth is changing. It's changing. It's not us that has the impact on it. It's just the earth going through its changes. 50 scientists, the top ones in the world, all signed that 4 years ago. I don't know what the question is. Why do we allow the media people to convince us that they have to keep pushing this agenda on us to get their wicked agenda moved forward? Educate as many others as you can. Michael Burry, very smart guy. He's called a lot of markets since 2006. This is his quote just the other day. Economic hell on earth is coming, and 90% of the people are totally unprepared. Get physical silver, get physical gold, get some food storage, buy the quality mining shares, educate others. I'm a truth guy. I want to know the truth about things. I know I'll get criticized for saying talks like this. It's okay. I've been criticized before. Back in 2007, when I said the whole thing was coming undone, they criticized me then, thought I was a nutcase. And then after it happened, they're like, where are you getting your information? It's certainly not in the mainstream media, okay? Anyway, the pipe dream of the PTSB, I won't get into all this, but they want a totalitarian system. If we let this happen, we will rue the day. We should be fighting against this tooth and nail. Gold and silver, does truth matter? Of course truth matters. But the media and the governments of the world have turned the truth on its head. Okay? Don't be part of that. Don't go along with that. History shows that when societies, governments ignore or subvert truth, the end of that society or political structure is near. Absolute truth does exist, whether people understand it or not. 70% of the population won't like this talk. I realize that. But I'm not going to stop saying the things that I need to say. So, quote from Plato, no one is more hated than those who speak the truth. The further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those that speak it. In my view, it's all about power and control, divide and conquer. The media, news outlets are all divided. They own all the media outlets. They make us hate one another. We fall into that trap. We should stop all that nonsense. Love one another, help one another, understand what they're doing to us, and fight against the real enemy. If you don't make a stand for the truth, we inevitably, by default, make a stand against it. Summing it all up, a crescendo of events is now unfolding. It's going to get difficult. There's no doubt about it. I wish I could say it wasn't, but, try to get out of debt. Try to own physical metals. Try to get the quality mining shares. Get a food storage. Again, it's pretty simple stuff. It's not rocket science. Don't let all this stuff confuse you. That's what they want. They want you to be confused, and they want you to go along with their agenda. And a note of hope. This is from the American Scholars Group, Michael Rechtenwald. He said, because the goals of the Great Reset depend on the obliteration, not only of free markets, but of individual liberty and free will, it is perhaps ironically unsustainable. Like other attempts at totalitarianism, the Great Reset is doomed to ultimate failure. That doesn't mean, however, that it won't, again, like those earlier attempts, leave a lot of destruction in its wake, which is all the more reason to oppose it now with all our might. And With that, I end my 2 letters, the Mining Speculator, the Insider Alert, discoverynexus.com. Thank you so much for listening.